In this tutorial, we're going to quickly go over some of the websites that are useful resources in helping us find free assets. All of these links are in your Blackboard, and always feel free to Google things like free sounds, free textures, free models, and there's probably a plethora of websites you guys will find that are all useful to you. These are just a few of the main ones and probably some of the most used ones. To begin, we have freesound.org. This is a great place for finding sound effects, not quite music, but sound effects. We can search for sounds, so if you wanted to find something like a zap or a gunfire, you could find it here. You could preview a sound by hitting the little play button, and when you're ready to download it, you just click on the sound and then you hit download sound. Do note that it will require you to make an account. You can see that I'm logged in up here, but it's very well worth it. The next website we have is Polyhaven. This is a fairly newer website. It is a website that has textures, which are both these HDRIs and textures. HDRIs specifically are textures that we use for the sky sphere, and textures are textures that we use for anything. They also have models here. However, I don't quite use the models on this website. I do very much use it for textures. We can click. They have a bunch of different textures. You can click on the texture. You can view all the different maps that come in the texture, and when you're ready to download it, you can always hit the download button. You could hit this little option, the burger menu, which opens up an option and lets us choose what maps we want and in what format. Very useful website. I believe you guys also have access to Substance, and Substance has its own library. I do not have access to Substance on this computer, but that is another great resource for textures. Next, we have TurboSquid, another website you have to make an account on. This website has a lot of models on it. You can search for models, as well as we can just explore things here. One thing to note about TurboSquid is it is largely meant for pre-rendered work. So, if you're making an animation in Maya, TurboSquid has great models for that, because TurboSquid has very high polygon models. When we're importing things into our game engines, we want to be a little careful. We don't want to have things with extremely high poly counts that'll make our game run slower. We want to be careful about that. When you are in TurboSquid, a very useful thing is make sure you come to filter by cost, reduce it down to just free assets, and where it says poly count, make sure you select low poly. Over here, we can see the assets. And just at the bottom, we can see what the main file types they have are. So for example, this says Blender, Blender, Blender. This is an FBX. This is a Maya file. Next to some of the assets, there'll be plus and a number. This means that there's some other types of assets as well. If I click on this asset, it opens up, and we can see that it says formats. There are 8 formats in here. The main format is Blender. And there's an FBX file we could download as a collada file, an object file, or an STL file. As long as we can download an FBX or an OBJ, we are good. This is a model we could probably test out in our engine. And if the description has something like other textures or textures included, that is also a plus, because that means it'll include the images that are textures that we can then import into Unreal. If it doesn't say this, but you can download an FBX's, chances that the FBX contains the textures within it. The only way we're going to know that is if we import it into the engine and it works. But as long as we can download an FBX, it is worth testing. Next, we have Mixamo. This is another website you need an account to log in. You guys all can use your school IDs, I believe, as we have access to the entire Adobe suite. Mixamo is going to be great for us for our second project, our top-down shooter, because these come with characters. There's 2 tabs up here, characters and animations. In characters, we can look through the characters and select different ones. It'll load. We can use this 3D viewer to just look at the character. Maybe I don't want this mutant. I do like Remy, so I'm going to use Remy. Then we could download the character. If we have our own character, we can upload it to Mixamo. This is not something we're going to focus on in this class, but we are going to download characters to use in our game in this class. We can go to animations. And here we can see various animations that Mixamo has. And there are a lot. There are 52 pages of this. There's a search feature, very useful. When we click on an animation, you can see that it applies it to our model. And there's some options we have here. You guys can explore these options on your own. We will look back into animations a little later in this class, as we are going to do a running animation for our character. Finally, and probably the nicest asset store we have, is Fab. This is Unreal's own asset store. I believe it was called something else before. Now it's called Fab. We can access Fab directly from here. Fab has assets for Unity and Unreal, and as well as UEFN, which is the Unreal Engine specifically for Fortnite. We are going to mostly use only Unreal assets. We could access it through here, and we can go through different assets. Or we can go back into our Unreal Engine, and in our content browser next to the import button, there's a button for Fab. We click on it, and it opens up a little browser where we can now look at our assets. One nice thing here is we can open up so I apologize. If we scroll down, we see the filter here where we can go to price and we just check free. These are all the free assets. A good thing about using this store is not only is it going to have models for you, it's going to have particle effects you can use, materials you can use, animated characters. There's also going to be scripts that we can use, different shaders, and all we have to do is just click on what we want, add to my library, and then we can add it into the project. I'm not going to add this, as I believe it's probably a big asset, but that is just the process to do it. So this is a great tool. When you're looking for assets, it's a nice place to explore, and I highly suggest you guys use it. That is all for this tutorial. Thank you for watching.